All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to Praetor Magic. My name is Seth Cross, and this is Reflections of the Council, our weekly Monday afternoon or evening or nighttime podcast that we do over at twitch.tv/Praetor Magic at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. For those of you who are watching this later on YouTube or in podcast world, if you want to join us and be part of the chat, of course you can come by and join us at that time. For this episode, there's going to be a little bit of things to talk about before we get into the main topic, so I apologize if I jump around or like, oh, don't let me forget this, because I am not always the most planned and prepared person, because that would be professional, and we're not professionals here at Praetor Magic. First thing I want to say is, of course, you may notice that, again, Frexen's card's not here. That is because he is not going to be joining me tonight. He should be back next Monday, and he, I believe, will also be with us on Saturday for the Commander Online episode. I did get permission from him to explain why he hasn't been here, and congratulations, Frexine, on the birth of your second child. Very big deal. That's awesome. As a father of three kids, I can tell you it does get a lot more fun when you have more kids because they get to have a lot more interaction with, people at their own age range as opposed to just like an only child dealing with their parents or something like that. So, very excited. Hope everybody's doing well, and can't wait to have you back on Saturday, I guess. We are also streaming some 30H this Wednesday. It is our Halloween episode. Basically, you just have to theme your deck to some kind of a Halloween theme. We do have a full game, but if you want to just sign up as a just in case last minute replacement, just in case one of the people doesn't show, feel free to do that in the 3DH channel of the Praetor Magic Discord, which you can find in a link down below. Whether you're watching this live on stream, YouTube, or podcast world, there should be a link to the Discord down below. And then, of course, I have to talk about our friends over at inkgaming.com, our sponsors, because it's your game, your style with them. If you want a custom playmat, dice bag, mousepad, or anything for your gaming experience, you can use our affiliate link that is down below this video, whether, again, YouTube stream or podcast world, and make sure that they know that we sent you. You can also get 10% off your entire purchase with our coupon code, which is Praetor10, PRAETOR10. And of course, thank you for helping support all the content that we try to put out now on a mostly weekly basis. Whew, that was a lot. I do know that I didn't do this last week. I was going to be solo and I wasn't super thrilled with the topic, so I took a little bit of time to try to organize my thoughts a little bit more. Right before we get into the topic, I said this on the last episode that we did do, which was 2 weeks ago, that I want to start doing new little sections just to kind of open things up and maybe even close things out. And what I did on that episode was a kill on site commander. And what I did at the time was Narset Enlightened Master, which is the legendary creature version of Narset, where if you're playing her, you better be expecting hate, and if you're at a table where she's playing, you better hate her out because she's dangerous and deadly and sometimes not much fun. That's right, Valdor. I said it. She's not that much fun. Anyway, this week I want to do a little bit of something different for those of you listening in podcast world. Hit me up on Twitter with your own opinions on what we're going to do. For those of you on YouTube, hey, go down, leave a comment on what your opinion is. But I want to do a kill on site artifact this time. And for those of you in the Twitch chat, feel free to just go ahead and comment what you think a kill on site artifact is. There's probably so many because artifacts can be so broken. But the one I picked specifically because it's newer. I wanted to pick something that I think is kind of super scary, and every time I've seen it play and survive, it has done some kind of broken, disgusting things. And the card that I'm talking about, of course, is from Throne of Eldraine. It's the Great Henge. So this is a legendary artifact from, again, Throne of Eldraine. It costs 7 green. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So, one, it's a 9-drop. Most people are not really going to think that that's super crazy at face value, but it can tap to add 2 green mana, and you gain 2 life at the same time. It's not like you have to do something else for the 2 life, or you gain life and then get the mana, or you get the mana if you have creature, or you gain the life if you cast creature, or if you do this. It's just those 2 things just happen. You can tap it for no reason. And then it also has whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1 counter on it and draw a card. The first time I read this, I read it incorrectly, and I thought that you only got the counter and the card when you use the mana from the Great Henge. But no, it could just sit there and do nothing as far as activating to give you that mana and that life. And every creature you cast will give you a +1/+1 counter, and 2, draw a card. Every time I've seen this card actually survive a turn, it just goes off and feeds the player controlling it so much that I think out of the 3 games I've seen it played, 2 games it's pretty much won the game for the person. So if you are in a game and you see this come out, do everything you can to kill this thing before it gets going and just obliterates the table. Before it accrues so much value that you can't basically claw your way back to being like on par with this person. So there you go. That's Kill on Sight. Again, YouTube people, make a comment down below. Podcast folks, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at DM_cross and tell me what your Kill on Sight artifact is. And again, if you're watching here on Twitch, feel free to put it into the comment section and maybe I'll call a few out toward the end of the episode. So with that out of the way, today's topic is an interesting one. It's actually the same topic that I would have talked about last week if we had done reflections. But again, my overall thought process on it was going to just be blatantly negative at first, and I needed more time to think about, I guess, other perspectives. Like I guess I had to like look at it from a couple different angles. So Wizards of the Coast made an announcement actually on last Monday about a new format that they are bringing to uh basically like LGSs and different events and everything like that. And they're calling this Pioneer. So what exactly is Pioneer? Pioneer is a eternal quote unquote format where they are starting from Return to Ravnica, which is back 5 years now, 6 years now, about because I got back into Magic and we got Danny into Magic around Return to Ravnica. So and she's been playing like 6.5 years, so almost 7 years ago. 7 years of standard legal sets. So as you can see from the image on the screen, Return to Ravnica, that entire set, the core sets, Theros, Tarkir, Innistrad, Zendikar, Origins, which was like the last core set we had for a couple years, Kaladesh, Amonkhet, Ixalan, Dominaria, the return of core sets this year's, Ravnica this year, the core set 2020, and then Throne of Eldraine, and now moving forward. They did mention that 5 cards are going to be on the ban list at the launch, I guess, of this format, and those are the fetch lands from Zendikar, and that's really it. That's kind of just all that they basically said as far as the format taking place. They did mention that they would ban things as the meta developed and everything like that, but it's 60 card format, 4 ofs, like basic. It's very similar to like a modern format where it reaches back a few years, obviously way more than standard does, and it's interesting. So again, my first thoughts was I don't understand why we're doing this. I mean, I modern is still in such a place that like it seems like a lot of people are still excited to really play it. I do feel like hearing about the meta, because again I'm not a modern player, is the meta seems to be really fast. It seems like it's how do you get to turn 4 to win ish, or like sometimes you can walk into a match and your deck just be completely outmatched because of the matchups or whatever. So that's kind of how I feel about modern. So and then even in standard, sometimes that's kind of the case. Esper control kind of dominated like last year ish or earlier this year ish, and now we're seeing Oko kind of go crazy, not just in standard but in other formats. So Simic's very big and everything like that. So my thought process was I don't understand why we need another format. My concern, I guess, was that they don't really have a lot of like legacy and vintage support already anymore, it seems like. So is this just going to be like the axe for those formats? Is modern getting the axe for support in the near future? That was kind of my concern. So I basically and I even went on Twitter and kind of made like an offhanded remark about like Wizards trying to come out with a different format for almost every set. And I meant that because historic on Arena was a thing. Brawl obviously was kind of a flop, and then they're trying to reignite it now with the precons. Um, and then they've had a bunch of different like kind of fun formats on Arena that are like the Omniscience draft and something like that, and Chaos drafts on MTGO and stuff like that. So it seems like every time you turn around, they're doing like this new thing, this new cool thing, blah blah blah. Come play this. We've seen other formats kind of like this fall through. So like Frontier and Tiny Leaders both are kind of formats that are similar that have kind of fallen through. Oathbreaker feels it. Wizards didn't bring Oathbreaker; it was community base thing. But Oathbreaker is a thing that did kind of come into bigger popularity this year. So it's just this year seems like there's just been so much new stuff for all of Magic. So that, my opinion, was kind of like, this is kind of overkill. Not really 100% sure what they're going to do about it. And then again, going back to the whole Brawl thing, I was like, well, if they're gonna talk about these formats and get everybody kind of hyped, but then not really support the formats, like Brawl took forever to come to Arena. They didn't really push it for any kind of events or anything like that. They said it and it was cool and it was a neat idea and it kind of went on for a little while and then it kind of just fell off. So are they going to do the same thing with Pioneer? I can say already that they are not doing exactly that with Pioneer. They do already. They did confirm that there are going to be events, and it is going to come to Magic Online fairly quickly. As a matter of fact, by now it should already be out. They have a bunch. Excuse me. They have quite a few PTQs where they're going to be doing Pioneer events, as you can see on the screen. Friday, November 1st, the 8th, the 15th, December the 6th, and then December the 7th. And there's even going to be a Mox preliminary event on Saturday the 23rd. So they are already showing a lot more support for Pioneer than they were Brawl. Even Historic was kind of like, like it was an arena only centric thing. The one thing that I did notice that was kind of weird was that in the announcement they didn't say too much about arena. I think they mentioned that they were going to try to shake out like a ban list before they ported it over to arena. That was kind of weird. And because they have been pushing arena as like their big ticket item of like, this is how we kind of want, esports to be, right? Like they're not doing, drafts on Magic Online in front of, on Twitch or whatever, but they are pushing arena like pretty hard. And they're doing a really good job, honestly, with arena as far as pushing like people like streamers into the limelight of kind of their product. So it was really weird. It was really weird to see this kind of come out and say like, hey, we're not going to put it on arena as fast as we're going to put it on MTGO, and then we want MTGO to kind of be like the testing ground for this to come on arena. And then it was even kind of weird because with arena they were always talking about it would be hard to program a lot of the cards that were from older sets. It's a weird kind of cutoff point, Return to Ravnica. I don't know. I don't think the announcement detailed why they decided to do that as opposed to Origins or Dominaria. A couple of people did say that Dominaria would be a good starting point as far as like a lore way, because they kind of sold Dominaria as going back home and everything like that. I feel like if they did Dominaria, there wouldn't be a lot of brewing ground, like space for people to play like new decks or anything like that. That's just my personal opinion. It still feels like Dominaria was not that far past. Like I still feel like it was just this year, and I know it wasn't. It was what, 2 years ago now, I think, something crazy like that. So, but in Return to Ravnica, like there's 7 years of cards in this format. There's a lot of standard decks. There's a lot of cards that made it through modern. I mean, again, we're talking just about Oko, Thief of Crowns, kind of going and doing crazy things in other formats. I think somebody said they qualified in a vintage event with an Oko deck, if you can believe it. Teferi was recently, both Teferi Hero of Dominaria and then Teferi Time Raveler were both crazy in standard recently. Teferi's still kind of a problem, whereas Hero of Dominaria is obviously rotating out. Collected Company was a thing a year or so ago. Energy decks back when we had Kaladesh, right? So you can kind of bring all these decks back from years ago. Whereas if they did it from Dominaria, you wouldn't really get that. I mean, really, you would have the Teferi decks, the Oko deck, and a couple other like Esper Control might be playable, stuff like that, and there might be some token decks from like Ixalan and stuff like that. So it's gonna be interesting. So again, my thoughts on this format as a whole were very scattered. It's a competitive format. It's a 1v1 format. So it doesn't really apply to me. So it was hard for me to come up with what I thought about it. So what I did was I went on to Twitter and I also went on to the Praetor Magic Discord and I basically asked for some opinions. there was a lot of good discussion in the Discord that I was not really able to capture because it was such a long conversation and there were such big chunks that it was hard to like screenshot a part of it, and then that part was in reply to something else and had a big reply to it, and I couldn't really link them well without just basically taking up the whole page and scrolling through discussion. So I didn't really capture anything from the Discord, but if you are on the Discord, feel free to go into the Everything Magic channel. You can kind of scroll up about last week, about this time last week, because it was around Monday when I wasn't sure if I was going to do the reflections then. But what I do have is I have a lot of responses in the form of tweets from Twitter where I ask for opinions. I ask for people's hot takes, for people's cold takes, for their hype, for their concern, or whatever it might be. So I'm going to read a few of these and kind of give my thoughts on responses to them. I will hopefully not be super hypocritical and constantly conflict my thoughts on one comment and not to another, but we'll see. I read a couple of these, like the shorter ones, I read as I was making the clips for this particular podcast. However, some of these I don't actually know 100% what they said, so my reaction will be a little bit more genuine. I didn't want to read each and every one word for word and sit there and think about it so that I could have a prepared response because I wanted to give more of a like, oh yeah, that's what that could mean, or that's a good point style expression. This is kind of like a reaction to people's takes, I guess, more than anything. So the first one is it's actually from Valdor. I didn't put names in most of these. A couple of names came up. Some folks I realized after I started, I was like, oh, whoops, I didn't put the name of that person. They would have been fine with their name up. This is from Valdor, who is again in the Discord and former Praetor. Once you're a Praetor, you're always a Praetor, even if you don't have the little yellow text on the Discord. So he says, I wrote a lot on your Discord, which everyone should check out. Haha. I see it's on there. I didn't write that. He wrote that. But I think that as a new competitive format, it should be good. It is a release valve for those priced out of modern but want to play a non-rotating format. No fetches mean money shouldn't be as high. I like this point. Uh, One of the reasons why I don't play modern is because I do not have the money to play modern. Like I don't want to spend that kind of money, even on Magic Online. Actually, I think some decks that I've looked for just to kind of like peek into what if I wanted to try modern, like some of them cost more online than they do on in paper, which is insane. But that's the simple reality. Modern is an expensive format, and I think somebody, I don't remember if I captured it, but modern, somebody even said like modern's getting close to like vintage style decks. I don't think the prices are quite that outrageous yet, because vintage decks like you might want to like pull out a second mortgage or something for, refinance your house for those decks. But um, I do like the idea that it is a non-rotating format that has a lower dollar amount. I do want to say that a lot of people on Twitter in the past week have noticed that a lot of the prices have spiked, and with this announcement, that was bound to happen. So, like Return to Ravnica decks and everything, are packs and stuff like that that maybe weren't quite as expensive. Like they may have been more because there's obviously now a more limited stock, so supply and demand. But they did spike up. Some people, I will even say this, just to say that we never shy away from controversy. Uh, some people have noticed that some of the spiking happened before the announcement. A couple of folks said that the stores were able to see the announcement before it went live, so maybe that was people buying up some stock to basically provide for their user base at their LGSs or whatever. But there's some people have been throwing around the words like insider trading. I don't know anything really factual about that. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. You can kind of see the data as far as like the pricing and stuff spiking, so do with that information what you will. Form whatever kind of opinion that you want. But Valdor does have, again, a really good point that it'll be a competitive format. It will have a lower price range than modern, at least for now. Do I think it will eventually get up to there? Um, I don't know. And a lot of it has to do with the way the decks are going to interact with each other. Because a good deck from standard, like this year, is not going to match up the exact same way a good deck from standard 4 years ago. So if the deck from 4 years ago can't match up against a new deck, then the new deck might become more expensive. Like Oko might go up more, even as insane as that sounds, because I think the last time I heard about it was like a week and a half ago, and somebody said he was $93. So if he does become popular, he's probably going to go up because the demand's going to go up because now people want to play Pioneer and they want good decks and they're going to want Okos if he's a good deck. Meanwhile, like again, Collected Company might not be good in Pioneer if Oka's around. Like I don't know. I'm not going into like the mechanics of what each card does or anything like that. So will prices go up? They already have. That's initial what's going to happen due to this announcement. So that's just the world we live in now. Will they stay up? I don't think they'll ever get 100% down to where they were. I think Magic is a victim to inflation like anything else. So when prices go up, I feel like it's rare that they ever go all the way back down unless just something better comes out that completely replaces it because it does something more or something better. But like how often does a card come out and unless it gets reprinted a lot, the price stay down or go back down to where it was. So, I don't know. But that's kind of where I feel on that. So I agree that it will be a lower price range. I don't think it will get up to modern for a very long time, especially if they've been thinking about this for a while. Who knows? Maybe their reprinting policy or mindset has changed and we just haven't seen the changes yet because they do plan sets so far out in advance. So who knows? The next one, uh, I do not have the name for this person. I like the idea. Modern as a whole is too degenerate as fetch shock allows perfect fixing so you can run anything. It is not surprising to me to see WotC do this, as they have said how much they dislike fetch lands. As a format, I think it could be great, as it's clear WotC's design has changed over the years. I think it allows for control and mid-range aggro to all survive, as they all still have a lot of tools. It's also great cost-wise, which is always good for newer players to get them into a new format. I'm hopefully optimistic right now. I think this was actually Mills on Twitter who said this, if I recall correctly. Somebody I go back and forth with quite a lot. Uh, I don't know about the whole disliking fetch lands. I know Gavin Verhey has recently made some polls about if we were to replace like fetching mana or fetching lands out of your deck, like how would we do it? So I could see getting that kind of vibe of disliking fetching, basically, right? Because it seems like it seems like the problem here isn't necessarily fetching, quote unquote, but tutoring in general, which then leads to shuffling. I think it's the time it takes to shuffle is really where they are going with this. So I guess I can agree with the whole disliking of fetch lands and everything like that. As far as the control of mid range decks, I don't know necessarily. I mean, I think those are. I guess the comparison is to modern. I guess that's what it is. Considering again that Mills started off with modern as a whole is too degenerate. Um, but like we already kind of do have a format where those decks do fairly well. Maybe not mid range aggro as much, but control decks do well in standard right now. I know that can change as standard changes and rotates, but it's been a while since I didn't hear that a control deck was doing fairly well in standard. Just saying. So I guess if that's your thing, and I do like watching control matches. I like the intricate thinking and planning and tricks and everything like that. So I'm fine with watching that kind of stuff. But I feel like we kind of already have that in standard. So this is one of those things, and there's gonna be another one as we go through that kind of addresses that as well. So the next one, I think there are a lot of standard decks no one misses coming back. I also think this format sounds less stale than modern. So this is kind of going back to what I was talking about as far as like the decks matching up. So is energy like Aetherworks Marvel decks, are they going to match up well against Oko decks, or are they going to match up well against uh the white tokens deck or aggro deck or whatever it was called from earlier this year? How are they going to match up to the red ruin amp deck that's going to happen? Because that's the other thing to remember too, right? There's only 5 cards on the ban list for this format. It's not like the standard ban list plus these 5. It's here's these 5 cards, those are banned, everything else is legal. So they just banned what do you call it, Field of the Dead out of standard, right? It's not banned in Pioneer. Can that be taken advantage of? We don't know yet. um is the Field of the Dead deck, Golos deck, Bant Scapeship deck, is that going to be good against decks from 3 years ago? We won't really know until we start seeing the events and start seeing the results of those events to kind of see how things shake out. So, as far as like the standard decks, no one misses coming back. I can't tell you how many people I saw on Twitter post about, oh man, I could play, this deck from this time of the year, or like, oh, do you guys remember this standard? I loved playing in this standard because of this deck or because of this card. So, a lot of people did get really hyped about the decks supposedly that no one misses. I don't think that's accurate. I think that was kind of like an off the cuff comment, like kind of like a haha funny comment. But again, I can see the less stale than modern. Apology, I had to take a drink. So for this next one, it's going to be a needed reset button on what modern has gotten itself to. A lot of players will carry their distaste from modern and apply it to Pioneer, much like Brawl got the dismay of standard critiques. If Frontier can grassroots its way to where it was, Pioneer will be fine. Oh, this one came from Matt Morgan, who is another writer over at EDH Rec. He does the 60 to 100 series where he takes archetypes from 60 card formats like standard, like modern, and turns them into commander decks. It's actually pretty cool. He's been on the podcast as well. Episode or one of the earlier episodes, we were talking about the mechanics for one of the Ravnica sets that recently came out and trying to see how they would apply to like other formats and stuff like that. It was a fun episode. I cannot remember what episode it was because it was so early on. However, um, again, I'm not a huge modern fan, so I can't really speak to what modern has gotten itself to. I've heard people say that they like where modern's at. A lot of people actually on Twitter will say that modern is in a healthy state, and then I have some people who are just like hate modern has turned into a turn 3 turn 4 format. um I don't think it's bad to have a turn 3 turn 4 format. I i think that's something that people do want to see. Maybe not everybody, but there's an audience for that. So again, like the idea that it's a reset button to modern, like, do we need another place for, going back a comment or two, for mid-range and control decks to flourish? Again, I feel like we have that in standard, and modern adheres to a different audience. So is Pioneer going to adhere to kind of an in between, a little bit of everybody? Like, will there be decks that can win super fast going up against control and aggro decks where like you kind of gotta, you know, maybe it'll be a little bit more skill based because there's just so many different archetypes already in the format because they were established in their own standards. Possible. I like the comment about if Frontier can grassroots its way to where it was, Pioneer will be fine. That's kind of funny. I can understand having another non-rotating format. I just have caveats. Yeah. Um, but yeah, Frontier is a format that like kind of lingers. It seems like it exists, but I don't know that it exists in any kind of popularity outside of like certain areas. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm not sure about the whole resetting modern thing. I don't know if we need that. I guess my big question is, what does WotC think this fills that wasn't being previously addressed? Vizsla suggested cost as modern is rapidly approaching vintage and deck price. This is the comment I referenced earlier. It's reasonable, but then is Pioneer the new 1.x? Also, a non-arena mode seems a little goofy. Again, I mean, kind of I alluded to this comment, and then I even kind of said my own piece about the fact that I won't be coming to Arena for a little while. That's contradicting everything that they've done recently. So I don't know what to make of that. I do know very recently, like in the past 6 months or so, a lot of people have been complaining a little bit more about Arena, and something about as it's come out of beta, it's apparently become a lot harder to play in terms of crashing and having problems and like technical issues. So, but again, like those are so recent, and the way Wizards has always done these kind of announcements and this kind of development, I don't think they can be related. I don't think they've had the planning to be able to react to that yet. And again, I don't know what wasn't being done with standard, modern, vintage, legacy, commander, draft formats, especially because MTGO has like flashback drafts where it's the Innistrad block, Innistrad 1 or Innistrad 2.0, or any of the Ravnica ones or Zendikar. Like they do those events already. So were they seeing maybe such success in those? Because now that I think about it, a lot of the flashback drafts have been sets from kind of like within the Pioneers scope of things. So I'm wondering if they just saw so much success in those events, like maybe people just flooded them so much that they're like, hey, maybe like people like these sets so much, maybe we should consider making this. And the best thing I could say about modern is that they will most likely never reprint some cards. So maybe it is an attempt to get more people into a format after standard. I think that's very important too, and that might just be me having like commander bias, but I think it really is important to have a format other than standard. Sure, you can play standard and you can have fun, and that's great. With the way standard rotates, unless you're only ever buying singles or like only buying a pack here and there, I only buy one box per set. That's typically it, and then I'll buy like a few packs here and there if I have like if I'm going to the store and I see one and I'm like, just tack it on. It's not that bad. So I can only imagine if you buy a lot of a set and then as it rotates out, like what do you do with it? Because I have so many cards everywhere. I can't like this. My desk is a mess. Um, so I can't imagine what you do if you don't have some kind of format. Like I'm lucky, I have Commander, so I can make Commander decks out of most of this nonsense, and a lot of times I do. So I can't imagine what people who only play Standard do, except trade them in or give them away. Maybe throw them out. I really hope not throw them out. I hate the idea of like throwing away cards. But so yeah, I'm kind of on par with this, and this kind of goes back to like even what I was saying to Matt's comment, like what are we trying to do with Pioneer, and maybe looking at what already exists, and like do we not have this thing being done already? I don't know. I personally don't know. But for the next one, I started playing Magic last year on Arena. I got to a point where I was interested in learning about sets beyond Standard, but I was too intimidated to delve into any of the other formats because the card pool was so much bigger. I am so happy Pioneer exists because then newbies like I was back then can segue into a more accessible Eternal format with a lot fewer cards and mechanics to learn about. So this is kind of, I guess, this kind of answers what we were just talking about, maybe a little bit. What are we trying to do with Pioneer that isn't being done by modern or other formats? So, or Commander for that matter. I can say, for instance, right, Dredge won't be in Pioneer, right? Dredge is original Ravnica, and it starts at Return to Ravnica, so Dredge won't be a thing. Um, I'm trying to think of what other like Infect won't be a thing. So, is that what we're trying to do? Are we trying to have a easier to learn format. Now, a bridge, are we trying to bridge between standard and modern? Because the starting points of those two are obviously always going to grow because standard rotates out. So you will eventually need to, like, if you never, so Pioneer here 7 years ago, standard is here. 7 more years, this is never going to change. But this is going to come all the way out here now, and then everything that you just moved is now going to be part of Pioneer. And then people who are joining at this point, the new standard 7 years from now, has 14 years of stuff in Pioneer. So is that going to become the thing? And then my question there is, so what are we going to do? Is it going to be like every 10 years we're going to have a new format? I'm not against that idea, I guess, but I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like, is there a solution somewhere in design where we can design cards that we never want to reprint again, so it becomes expensive? Like there are some cards in that are modern legal that they don't seem interested in reprinting. and they are expensive for that reason, because supply and demand. There's now a limited supply because they're so much older and there's never going to be printed again, and the demand for them is great because they are legal and good and modern. So, can we then do something again in the design process where we're not designing cards that we're never going to want to see play again? I don't know. Maybe that's kind of like where this kind of weirds me out. Like, it seems like they're using this new format to fix maybe a problem that they have instead of fixing what that underlying problem might be. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Next one. I do apologize. My throat is actually very dry all of a sudden. So, judging by community response, people seem happy for a new space with no fetch lands, Lightning Bolt, PoE, Tron, but a deep enough card pool that fun and creative decks can emerge. They'll also notably have none of the cards from Modern Horizons. But the not on arena part is so oof. This one, I again, for as much as my personal feeling is I don't really know what we're doing here, blah blah blah. I will agree. People have seemed super excited to brew decks in Pioneer. A lot of people have taken decks that they've liked from 5 years ago and just kind of tweaked them now with cards that are available thanks to the card pool. Um, I know like one of the biggest things people started talking about on the day of this announcement was the Saheeli Ray and the Felidar, the copycat deck. People were like, "Oh, great, that's back!" And this is going back to the one comment we had earlier, where like, "Oh, decks that no one misses." So maybe that person, I think that might have been Paul Kinter. Maybe he did have a point after all. There are going to be some kind of like, oh, this deck again decks. Again, Esper Control could be a thing again, right? I love the Esper Control deck. I don't know why. I'm a monster, but um, so yeah. But then you do take out a lot of things that I guess mess up those decks. Um, Lightning Bolt got mentioned a couple times. I think this might be the only one that mentioned Tron, but Lightning Bolt got mentioned a couple times, which is really weird to think like because I'm a commander player, like Lightning Bolt. You know, it's such a big deal that there's no Lightning Bolt, and I'm like, is it? It's a, I mean, you know. But again, for obviously Modern Burn, I'm sure it probably loves Lightning Bolt. So, what do I know? I like this other comment too about none of the cards from Modern Horizons, and the reason why that's kind of important to note is that when I did show the card pool, or I'm sorry, the set pool earlier, they were all standard legal sets. So Battle Bonds isn't going to be in there. None of the conspiracies are going to be in there. Obviously, none of the commander products are going to be there, which is another huge difference from Modern. You will, like Kess, I think, right, broke into Modern for a little while. I can't think of anything else. Like obviously, Modern Horizons, like Hogak, for a while, kind of like disrupted Modern until he got banned out. So that again is, I guess, a big difference between Modern and this is that they are. It seems like they're going to limit it to standard only sets, standard legal only sets being added in. Obviously from that starting point, so that might make a big difference. I don't really know. And again, like the arena part is just baffling. It's baffling. So this next one, oh yeah. So this next one's from Benny, who is the writer of the. I think it. Oh God, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of it. The Commander book that he wrote. Was it the Commander, the Complete Commander? That's what it was. Whew, I remembered it. So he's he's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill me. I forgot the name of his book. I love your book, by the way, Benny. I do. I just don't think well on my feet. I'm sorry. Hot take. Pioneer is the paper bridge between modern and historic. This will give us a new eternal format, that's more accessible than modern, while historic accumulates sets over the next couple of years. So does that mean that historic will get a bump in the next couple of years? Again, to do that whole like, hey, we have to have a reset on our eternal format. Is this again a sign that they're just going to completely cut off support for legacy and vintage and just say, hey, that's not where we want to be anymore, and we don't want the player base to be, I guess, into that, right? Like, I don't want to make them sound like, hey, we have to control what you're interested in or anything like that, because I don't think that's what they're trying to do. But like, that's just not where we want to be as far as providing our product to our player base. So I don't think this is a super hot take, actually, to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of people, again, seem to have this bridge between modern. Normally, not historic isn't the other format that we're bridging in most of these replies. Benny is, I think, the first person to call it the bridge for that. As far as replies to me. But yeah, it's not a super hot take. It's a good point. But again, like now, will historic be the next pioneer in a few years? I don't know. I also don't know that much about historic. I know it was like a thing on Arena. Historic's like all the sets that were Arena available, right? Something like that. So will Pioneer never make it to Arena because we'll have historic in a couple years, and it will be more important when there's a couple years worth of sets on Arena? Because that'll be really weird. If historic is basically like an Arena only thing for the esports, and then Pioneer is like what, the paper one for when you go to events? That's just too much. Like, I think that's too much. I think we have too many things going on. Um, it's just kind of crazy. Well, all right, let's go to this next one. Hey, New Dark Cloud, friendly New Dark Cloud from Discord server, and usually here with us in Twitch chat. I hope it does well, and I think it was smart to ditch the fetch lands. I was surprised they didn't start at Origins though. So I wanted to highlight this comment because, again, I kind of alluded to this a little bit. Some people said Dominaria. New Dark Cloud said Origins. Return around because it's like a kind of weird one to start at. It When I first heard it, it kind of made me smile because again, I got into Magic at Return to Ravnica. So I'm wondering if there was like a surge around that time of like popularity or something, and that's why they did it. I would really like to know the thinking behind why Return to Ravnica. Why is that our starting point for Pioneer? Again, I'm not against that being the starting point. I don't super care one way or the other. Again, I'm probably not gonna play Pioneer myself ever. Uh, yeah, ever. Um, but why was it Return to Ravnica? If for no other reason than I guess that I got back into Magic at Return to Ravnica. So was there something special about that set? It's special to me personally. It might be special to like Danielle. It might be special to like John because that's when we all started playing together. But outside of that, like why? I don't know. That's kind of like one of the weird takes I guess I had from one of these comments. Next one. I think it's a good thing. It got people buzzing and excited to brew. There's potential for stuff to shine that couldn't make the transition from standard to modern. Even the starting point is good, going further back than everyone expected, so there's a deeper pool. So again, like I can't tell you how many people I saw during the announcement day, which was last Monday, uh talking about what deck they were gonna brew, what deck they just wanted to bring back and play again. A lot of people were just like, hey, I just want to play my favorite deck from this time. I don't want to change it or anything. I want to play the exact deck list. Who knows? Maybe a deck will become dominant that way because it was a good deck and it just matches up really well against the decks that rise to the top of, the meta or whatever like that. But this is 100% correct. I wish I had remembered who said this. Because I really do think, and again, going back to, I believe it again was Paul Kinter's comment about decks that no one wants to see come back. There will be some eye roll decks, but there are also going to be a lot of people super excited. And I've seen so many people talk about, like, this is what I'm doing for Pioneer. This is what I'm doing for Pioneer. I think Saffron Olive said that they have seen some massive numbers of decks into MTG Goldfish for, I don't remember the exact number. It was in the, like, I want to say the 6,000s, and it was over like 6.5 thousand. I want to say that's the right number of like decks that people are building for Pioneer and already just showing up on their website. And the announcement's only a week old, and he said this like either he said it like Saturday or Friday or something, so it wasn't even a full week, and they're seeing a huge rush of cards for of decks, for this format. So Wizards did not miss the mark for as much as I may not get it or I may question some of what they are trying to accomplish. They definitely didn't miss the mark as far as the player base. So maybe I'm just the oddball. You never know. All right, next one. I remember this comment. Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time, and Nexus of Fate are going to be nuts. Um, this is kind of something that I thought of as people were starting to brew. And this does go a little again back to Paul Kincher's comment about there's going to be decks and no one wanted to see come back. The Nexus of Fate deck will probably be a thing. What was it, like Bant Nexus of Fate or something like that? Will probably be a thing. Um, God, if you could get a like way to put cards back on top of your deck, I could see like Nexus of Fate and God Eternal Kepnet being a thing, and you just take infinite turns that way or whatever. Not that the ban Nexus of Fate deck it was impossible to take basically or no, not basically, but legitimately infinite turns. So I did see a couple of other comments that like Blue and Black got Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time, Nexus of Fate, Thought Season, some other things, but like Lightning Bolt couldn't have been in and like these other things. So I I don't know. There have been strong red decks. There have been strong decks with green in them in the past few years. So I think this is a little skewed. I think it's basically more toward whatever you like to play and whatever you don't like to play. Like I think the person saying this is either excited and they're a blue player or they're terrified and they hate playing against blue. So you know what I mean? Like I think that's kind of the thing. Because again, like the first thing I thought about was, oh, the Esper control decks can come back. And then I started seeing people say like, oh, the copycat decks can come back. Oh my god, I'm a blue player. Jesus. Um and then like energy decks are gonna come back. Blue player. Um, the collected company deck. I don't know why I got so hooked on the idea that collected company's coming back. I know like I tend to play a lot of Sultai, which has Simic in it, but apparently like that's like my thing. That's my group right there. I'm apparently a Simic player, and I had no idea. DB Cross, hey DB Cross. I'm not a fan, but I'm not the target audience. I don't play any competitive format. I am with Benny that it will cause prices to rise on some cards in EDH. That is what I don't like, and I agree. There are going to be some bulk rare style cards that were good in Commander because they were big splashy effects that were also good during their time in Standard as closers that are now going to become a little bit more higher demand because they are going to be able those standard decks right can come back. So the demand is going to go up because there's now another format that these cards are servicing. So I agree that is probably going to happen. And again, like we talked about it, I don't think some prices are going to come back down. I think some prices are just going to stay high. I think that is going to just be how it is. And I think that's true with a lot of Magic. I think it's usually very hard for prices to go up and then come down to where they were, and I don't think unless there's a massive reprint that they will ever go down farther than they were previously. I just don't think that's going to happen again unless something completely invalidates a card and it gets reprinted. That's probably the only world that happens. So, or some cards that are just kind of worthless because they're just reprinted to death or something like that, or just not very good outside of like limited effects or limited events. So, next one. I like it a lot. Puffer is called Legacy Light, and I think Pioneer as Modern Light. Take a lot of the degenerate cards out of the format and allow you to have historical standard decks that play for all time. Personally excited to see how Feather with Theros block works out. I mean, there you go. That's a theme or an archetype I didn't even think about. So Feather and oh, because of Heroic. Okay, I was like, Bestow doesn't work with Feather because it's not an instant or sorcery, but obviously Heroic was in Theros. So yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, I guess. And this again, I don't disagree that it's modern light. I just don't know that we needed a modern light. Did Feather do anything in modern? Probably not, right? Because she just gets removed, and she's probably a little bit too hard to cast. Well, no, because of the fetches and the shocks. Is Feather a thing in modern? Somebody, somebody tell me that. What the heck? Why? I love Feather. Why do I not know the answer to this? Anyway, but yeah, again, I mean, and people are always like degenerate cards is like degenerate because I don't know. To me, like degenerate is like stack stuff or like hard locks. That's degenerate because it stops you from playing Magic. things that are strong or combo-y to me are not degenerate, they're just combos. And I think combos are just kind of a natural evolution of the game. Especially when you start talking about eternal formats, right? There's just some things that R&D are going to design in their bubble that they can't think about 5 bubbles back. It's just not possible. Not without a lot more money and a lot more time and a lot more people. And I don't think it's cost effective to do that anyway. So there you are. But again, like I don't know. I don't think of modern as degenerate, and I've watched modern. I don't play modern. Again, I've said that a couple times, and I'll keep saying it just so that there's no confusion. But I don't think of it as bad. I think of it's just a different audience. Like I think about to have like a whole nother topic on this podcast. I think people have a problem with the thing that they enjoy changing from what they enjoyed it to. And I have this problem a lot with Commander. I love the new stuff that comes into Commander. I love the Eminence abilities. I loved partners for a time, and the only reason why I don't like partners now is because I feel like it's hard to design new partners. And blah 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 blah. Again, a whole nother topic. But I feel like a lot of people who have been playing Commander for like a lot longer than me aren't okay with where Commander is evolving to, and that's why you get a lot of complaints about like the precon decks and the precon commanders and stuff like that. Not so much this year, mostly like past couple of iterations, but again, like Eminence ones, the Planeswalker ones, etc., etc. So, and like, oh my god, there was even like a huge thing today going around Twitter about Planeswalkers are the worst thing that ever happened to Magic and blah blah blah. But that is actually next week's topic for those of you who want to know. But yeah, I think a lot of people have a hard time with realizing that the game evolves. The game is going to change. If it's better or worse is kind of based on your personal bias, right? Me, it's getting better. That's my personal bias. I'm a new kid in a candy store or a new kid at Christmas every time a new set comes out. Like, oh, this is cool. Oh, look at this interaction over here. Oh, look at this combo that it just enabled in Commander. Oh, look at how like these new cards affected Modern. I hate to say it, but when Hogak like destroyed Modern, I loved it. I love stuff like that. I love big splashy impacts like that. Even the fact that they banned it, like I wasn't sad about the banning because again, I don't really play the format, but the fact that it got to the point where they had to ban it, like to me, that's kind of cool. Like this card was so good. It speaks to like the card's kind of like value, I guess, right? And I love cool things. I love cool things in Magic. That's why the game is so good. Um so for see people like, oh, mad about it. Like I think there's a place for everything, right? So I think those degenerate cards have like a place. I don't know. No feather isn't a thing in modern. Zero decks at MTG top 8. Damn. Damn. I was so hopeful. Modern is neat, but in no way is a format I want to play. Heck, even Commander, I do not want to play to build a deck for a Torment of Hellfire expropriate environment. I mean, we all know how I feel about Torment of Hellfire. I'm not even like that upset about expropriate, which like you would think I wouldn't like. God, I'm a blue player. Jesus. Uh, and that environment is like 2 steps back from CEDH. It's a completely different topic. And this weekend I was playing against EDHX where I shouldn't play any of my own personal decks almost at all. Yeah, I mean, power levels are a thing. All right, so this is going to be the last one, and then we're going to do a quick wrap up. I was worried about filling an hour, and we are almost there. So my problem is that they didn't start by banning problematic cards and see how the format shakes out to think about what to unban. And they went the opposite way. I do prefer less bans generally, but as it stands, we seem to only have like 5 decks. So I wanted this to be the last one, and throughout this entire podcast, I have no issues with anything anybody said or anything like that, and obviously none of this is personal, but this comment, I completely disagree. Again, like I rattled off more than 5 decks that people have been excited to play again or to play in a new environment or that I'm excited to see in a new environment or see played again in the course of like 30 minutes. As far as the banning problematic cards, the only thing, see, it's so hard. The only thing I could see to justify this thought process is to go through all the standard since Return to Ravnica and having the cards that were banned in Standard banned in this. But I don't think that's the right way to do it. I really don't. I actually don't mind having the fewer bans and letting the meta craft itself and then reacting to it. I really don't mind. Um, I think I think it's a messy way to do it. I think you'll have some people get kind of hurt feelings when like if something does inevitably dominate the meta, you'll get people who are upset about it. I think Wizards has been pretty good with like flash bans though over the past year. Just saying. The copycat thing got hit kind of in the butt. Why did copycat get printed in the same standard? Don't really know, but still, like I guess maybe something like that where it was an emergency ban. Maybe those are the ones that should have been banned. But anything else, like you got to see what the meta is going to do because it's like yeah, that card was problematic in its own bubble. But again, we're talking about so many different bubbles as rotations have happened. I don't think a lot of bans would be justifiable. And then Screaming Jaywalker in chat says it's only been a week. It won't be just standard decks in a new format. Eventually, new decks will develop. Yeah, that's true. That that's accurate. I think a lot of it. I mean, I don't know. It's been a week, and again, I've seen a lot of people who just take their original deck that they liked when they were playing in standard, and then tweaking it with cards that weren't available for it in standard. That maybe they were like, "Oh man, I really wish I could have played like this card in this deck because that would have been stupid gross." And it's not gonna like shake out 100% the way they thought it would because again, you have to compete with everybody doing that or people coming up with like these really good ideas of all these different cards from these different different formats, different standard rotations merging together to create like this nice little package. But I mean I agree with what you're saying. Eventually it will be new decks developing and not looking like just hodgepodge of standard decks battling it out. But I think for a while that's what you're gonna have because I think Wizards hit a really good point, maybe on accident, of like nostalgia, which is a weird thing to say because we're only talking about like again 7 years of decks. Maybe nostalgia is not the right word. Sentimental value, maybe I don't know. People who got attached to the decks they played during standard. That's where I'm trying to go. It's natural that people will first try stuff that was powerful in standard because that's obvious and quick. Yeah, you're right. And again, like that's kind of the world that we live in now in Magic is that because of the internet, right? Anything is super easy to look up and find on the internet, right? So you can easily just go back and what was the best standard deck at this year and build that and then or like what was the best standard deck that did a thing, right? So what was the best standard scape shift deck? You're gonna get maybe Bant scape shift or whatever. But you know, the best token deck or the best combo deck or the best mill deck or whatever like that. You can kind of do that and then tweak it as you're looking at the whole card pool. I do want to point out because Wizards actually said that the Gather website, Gather or wizards.gather.com, uh, was gonna have support for Pioneer like in the next week or whatever, and Scryfall had it like the same day as the announcement. So if you need a place to search for your Pioneer legal cards, Scryfall's already got you covered. Just saying, not sponsored, just really friggin' love their product. But yeah, I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, so my final thoughts are going to be that I am fine with the format existing. It will be interesting to see it develop. I will probably enjoy watching it. I probably won't play it at all because one, I mean, competitive Magic, and Valdor even made a joke about this. He's like, "Oh, it's a competitive format, so it's not for you." He's not 100% wrong. I'm not really a competitive, like super competitive person, so he's kind of correct. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to really wait and see how things develop, how the meta develops, how these decks develop. If there winds up being like this one super cool, obviously blue now that or Simic deck now that I'm realizing who I am and it's disgusting. Uh, in the meta, then I'm sure I will enjoy watching people play it and stuff like that, and I'll probably look into how it works and stuff like that. Another cool thing about this, we'll see. So a lot of times, I mentioned Morgan, Matt Morgan from EDH He does his 60 to 100 series where he takes archetypes from other formats and translates them into commander formats. This is an opportunity for commander players to get a more directed view. Like we're commander players, right? So we Oko.deck. I think Oko is going to be a thing in Pioneer. It's a thing in Vintage apparently. Um, I do think that it will present an opportunity where we'll see people mixing things and doing well in it, and we'll be trying it in Commander. Not necessarily for like the first time, because Commander, it's hard to get something past Commander for a long time, like 7 years, because we just have so many people building so many different ideas, and every time a new card comes out, ooh, what can this do with these cards that weren't legal in Standard, right? Like that's one of the big things about Commander is getting to break things that you can't break in other formats. But yeah, it might kind of tip us off to some new things. You never know. I always think any kind of new magic is always good for Commander. That's how I honestly feel. Minus minus Leovold. That card was garbage for Commander. Um and Narset. Narset's garbage for Commander too. Should be banned. I'm about to find out in the next like 20 seconds if Valdor's in the chat. Uh, so yeah, that's my take on it. It's not for me as a player. It will probably be for me as an audience member. I love watching Magic. I mean, I like everything about Magic. I love everything about Magic. So yeah, I'll have to kind of stick it out and see. I hope that we do have. I will say this: if Wizards is going to do this, and again they're showing more support for this than some of the other formats that they've done recently, I hope that they stay all in on the support. If you're going to present a thing, if you're going to present a product, you should be prepared to present the product as the best product you've ever come out with to date. That should always be the thing. If it's not the new best thing you've ever done, then why are you doing it? That's how I feel about when I build a deck. If the next deck I build is not, one of the most fun decks I've ever played in my life, then why did I build it? I mean, except to try and see, obviously, but like, if I build a deck and it's miserable to play and it's miserable to play against, then I shouldn't have built that deck and I'd take it apart. I want to have fun. Like new things should be fun. New cards in Magic should be fun. Maybe not the Great Henge because that card's broken. Kill on sight. But you know what I mean. Maybe not Oko because Planeswalkers are apparently horrible. With that being said, next Monday Phyrexian should be back. I have already told him that what I want to talk about is how bad are Planeswalkers for the game, Magic the Gathering, and I want to do that because a lot of people, as John is pointing out, it's the thing everywhere. We're talking about Oko. We just need to find better ways around it. Um, I Oko has sparked Oko and then the Teferis, right? The Hero of Dominaria and Time Raveler T3 Fairy uh have sparked this conversation not for the first time, but again, kind of like hotly recently, that Planeswalkers are just horrible design and they're the worst ever and blah 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 blah. So we're gonna talk about that. Me and Phyrexian. We're gonna have a little discussion. Uh I don't know. I think I kind of know his opinion. I know what my opinion is, so it should be a good back and forth, I think. But you'll have to find out next Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time here on twitch.tv/Praetor Magic. Or you can join us over at youtube.com/Praetor Magic and watch the video there. Make sure you subscribe. Leave some comments down below. Again, what was your kill on sight artifact? Was it the Great Henge? Was it Aetherflux Reservoir? Was it Skull Clamp? I've seen people blow up a Skull Clamp. I was originally, before I thought of the Great Henge, and I'm just going to give you guys a thought process into my brain. I was originally going to do Lightning Greaves because a lot of times I find myself blowing up a Lightning Greaves because being able to give something scary haste and protection is really strong, and it's packed in so many decks. So there are times where I just blow up a Lightning Greaves because that's the scariest thing. That's the scariest artifact on the field. And to end this podcast, we're gonna do a new segment, which kind of came again from Twitter. It was an interesting idea that somebody had where I made a joke about at least some card didn't have something, and they turn around and is like, oh, well, imagine if this had that mechanic. So it's going to be called breaking the mold, and what we're going to do is we're going to brainstorm right here, you, me, us together. We're going to brainstorm how scary a commander would be if you added a mechanic to its design. And this time we're going to do haste. And I originally had an idea for this and completely forget the idea because somebody, when I basically asked if there anybody on Twitter was interested in this particular segment, somebody came up with a reply that chilled me to the bone and said, well, imagine if Tulane, Teller of Tales, had haste. And I'd like the friggin' not ever, please, no. GIF of somebody throwing up, of Jim Carrey throwing up. So Tulane Teller of Tales, for those who are not aware, is one of the pre-con brawl commanders. He costs 2 green, white, blue. He's a 2/4 human druid. I thought it was a wizard. He has vigilance already. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card, then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Any kind of land, not entering the battlefield tapped, unless, of course, the land says so. For 3 and tap Tulane, return target creature you control to its owner's hand. Imagine if this thing had haste. Imagine if this thing had haste. On a scale of like 1 to 10, where 1's like it's actually worse than if it didn't have haste, and 10 being a this would have to be banned, uh, or like Wizards would have to put out like a like no, give us all these back. It was a mistake. A high Boros commander, Boros plus commanders. I don't know. Tulane would, because he's such a value piece. Like you could, especially if you're having a lot of like flasher stuff. I actually think Tulane Ace is just gross. He almost becomes impenetrable. Like the only card that really stops him is either the person tapping out, and that's now you're just bad at Magic, or sudden spoiling. Those are the only 2 cards I can think of that stop a Tulane with haste and 3 extra mana, which if you're playing the long game with a 2-lane deck, you probably already have 3 extra mana. Or if you're playing with, again, with a lot of flash, you probably already have the extra mana. I think this is pretty gross. I think I would probably put it, I'd put it up there. I'd put it at like an 8, honestly. I would not want to play, like, I don't like playing again. I don't like seeing a Tulane, is Tulane the next kill on site commander? I don't know. I don't like really seeing Tulane on a table in the first place. So giving it haste, which makes it just that much harder to deal with, just sounds gross. But that is it, everybody, for this week. I thank you all for coming out. Euro with haste. Oh, God, no. That's a good one, too. Can we not? Can we not? Actually, Preempt, Scary, Haste Commander, Maelstrom Wanderer. Ew. See, like, I thought, I don't know. I think Tulane is still kind of gross because of how much value he accrues. But those are also pretty gross. Again, though, thanks everybody for coming out and listening and joining me here on our Mondays. I really do enjoy these podcasts, and it was a little daunting to do these solo without Frexing. So you guys interacting and everything has made it a lot better. So thank you very, 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 very much. Haste makes Tulane better, but his scariest mode, you don't ever keep the mana up. You drop him and combo off. It's possible. This Wednesday is going to be 3DH. That's $3 Highlander. It's our budget commander format that we play on MTGO. We already have a full table, but if you want to put your name on the spreadsheet anyway, just in case somebody does call out or anything like that, it is in the 3DH channel in the Praetor Magic Discord. There's a link below the stream, below the video, and in the podcast description where you can join us. The theme is Halloween. We're going to keep doing the themes, I think. I really like when these are done. So that's I don't know. To me, it's always a lot more fun when I can build kind of like a jankier deck just to have fun with. I don't play 3DH to be like super competitive or anything like that. I play just to have fun, to like do deck ideas that I don't really have time or the opportunity to build anyway. I'm doing Elenda of the Dusk Rose, so I'm going to be doing a scary vampire deck. I think I saw like goblins and I saw some other stuff, so werewolves and zombies and spirits and all that other spooky nonsense. That's what we're going to play on Wednesday. So that's 9 p.m. Eastern time. Again, twitch.tv/Praetor Magic. This Saturday will be Commander Online. So I can tell you already that I am, I'll tell you even what I'm playing. So you know what, John, I think is, oh, oops. John's in the chat, so he's getting a sneak peek. But the commander that I'm actually going to be playing is Chainer Nightmare Addict. If you are a fan of Commander Versus, if you are a longtime fan of Commander Versus, you will recognize, I think, a core part of my deck list, even though the commander is not the same, obviously, because this is newer. I don't want to say anything more than that. I will say a little bit more during the episode. But yeah, come join us again this Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/Praetor Magic. You can make sure you're subscribed over at youtube.com/Praetor Magic, because if you cannot be here for these live events or live gameplays, we do put them all on YouTube later on. So you will always get to see whatever you missed. Join us in the Discord, because we do post there when they get posted to YouTube. Follow us over at twitter.com/Praetor Magic, facebook.com/Praetor Magic, instagram.com/Praetor Magic, which I really need to get better about using. And until next time, until Wednesday, that's really all I got for you guys. Hope you guys enjoy.